heading up this one, we've got Carol Palombini on Challenger Safety. So welcome, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I was surprised to see this panel, people talking about soft skills, people talking about the importance of not replacing juniors with AI. So that, as a psychologist, made me really happy. But today, I'm going to talk about Challenger Safety. Where's the clicky thing? Here. Please raise your hands here, people who already heard about psychological safety. Challenger Safety. Oh, good. So it's this one? Okay. So, wow. Okay, so before we start going into the content, I wanted to tell you a little story. So this is a real story about a client of mine. So let's call him David. So David, when he looked for me, he was baffled. He considered himself to have achieved the type of leadership he always wanted. So he was admired, open, and a democratic leader, not just by his self-assessment, but by the assessment of his team. He also adopted leadership, a mentorship style of leadership. He was open to contributions. He was constantly communicating, verbalizing that he was open to contributions. He was friendly, collaborative, and he actually built this supportive and collaborative culture. People in his team also constantly mentioned how they became friends, even outside of the company. But still no ideas. It was a very reactive group. So what was happening there? Were people afraid of being punished, and that's why they weren't giving any ideas? That's hardly the case. So for those who don't know me, I'm Carol Palombini. I'm a psychologist and tech leadership coach and consultant. And my mission here is to help CTOs and other tech executives to uncover blind spots and build team cultures that actually sustain innovation. And so what happened with David? What was his problem? When we talk about psychological safety, the first thing that people think is authoritative leaders. Authoritative leaders hinder innovation, they hinder contribution, and if I'm not an authoritative figure, if I'm a democratic leader, then everything is going to be okay. But as we can see in David's case, that's not always the case. So the biggest misconception here is thinking that the friendly environment are enough to foster innovation. So they are essential for the first levels of psychological safety, but they're not enough if you need innovation. When we think about authoritative figures, we think people are afraid to be punished. And that's why they do not give any ideas. But we forget that there are other sources of fear. In David's case, his team was very afraid of losing his respect, his admiration, and even of losing their friends if they contradicted them. So what happened was they created a type of group thinking that was killing innovation. They were so concerned about keeping the friendly environment that they couldn't allow any kind of dissent. So you see, what David considered to be his biggest strength as a leader was actually hindering the innovation and not actually helping them provide ideas. And as we see, group thinking kills innovation. What his team needed was not more friendliness, not more collaboration, was structure. And throughout all these years, I've been working with people development for over 20 years and exclusively, mostly, with tech companies for almost 10 years. And what I've seen is there are two big reasons why people don't innovate. Either because they don't feel safe to challenge the status quo, or because they don't have the right structure for that. They've never seen anyone doing that. And that's what we're going to work today, on the structure and the mindset. As Peter Drucker says, disagreement is needed to stimulate the imagination. So if you don't have any type of dissent, if you have any type of friction, you won't have the ability to connect ideas. And in the end, innovation is what? Different people connecting different things. So how do you build friction, intentionally build friction and debate structure? So this concept of psychological safety, I think it's perfect, and we can see the blind spot right there. So it's feeling safe to take risks around your team members. No one will embarrass or punish you or punish anyone else for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering an idea. So when we talk about psychological safety, I notice there's the blind spot on the embarrassment part. So people are very aware of the punishing part, but not of the embarrassment. And as we can see, there are 4 levels of psychological safety, according to Timothy Clark. His book is very good. I super recommend about the levels of psychological safety. It's very full of very easy examples to follow. But the thing is, what is psychological safety in the end? Is the condition in which, first, you feel included. Second, you feel safe to learn. Third, you feel safe to contribute. But when we're talking about contribution, we're not talking about innovation yet. We're talking about minor contributions that came from the learning process. But as you can see, the threshold for innovation is challenger safety. It's that level where you allow people to challenge the status quo. So going a little deeper on challenger safety. If there's one thing I would like you to remember, is that the social exchange for challenger safety is cover for candor. So you need to protect people from embarrassment for them to contribute ideas. So that demands taking risks. You're asking your people to change your behavior and challenge the status quo. And going back to David's case, what was the status quo? Was David himself. He was so admired. People loved him so much that they were afraid of saying something that could contradict him and lose his respect. And in the end, he's so good at what he does. I may be wrong. I'm probably wrong. He is better than me. So he was casting this huge shadow that came from wanting to become this admirable, knowledgeable, go-to expert in the area, although he should have left the expert mindset back in the past, as we've seen in the round table yesterday. But when we're talking about challenger safety, there's also 2 main aspects that I think is super important for us to understand. First, there are cultural differences. Another client was having a similar issue, but they had a Belgian team and a Lithuanian team. And they were very different culturally. He didn't understand why the Lithuanian team wouldn't bring as much ideas as the Belgian team. And I say, oh, maybe they don't have that many ideas. No, people have ideas. Trust me, tech minds are restless. They have a lot of things going on there. So that's not the point. But some cultures are very hierarchical. And when you challenge an idea of a superior, that's considered disrespect. And that not only cultural aspects, but there are also gender differences. It's very common that men are usually encouraged to challenge, while women are encouraged to support. So you might have to have different approaches to different people, different cultures, different genders, and not put them in boxes. There may be a woman that's super good at challenging. She was supported her entire life to do that. But understanding that this might be a sign that you have to look for when you are actually looking at your people. And something that I mentioned also on the round table yesterday. One of the biggest problems in this is when you try to generalize. I have this situation, how am I going to fix it? So we want to find one solution that will fix all the problems. And that's a comfort zone for tech leaders. Finding patterns and working on single solutions. What is going beyond your comfort zone? Looking at people. Understanding the individuals, the subjects that work with you. And didn't want to be the one to bring bad news, but tech leaders have the biggest challenges among all the C-levels when it comes to innovation. And why? Not because your teams are not intelligent and capable, but because of some of the tech mind traits. These are very common traits I find not only in leaders, but also engineers in teams. So you have this in yourself, and you have to be self-aware of how much these traits are actually interfering in your leadership, but also understand how your team is operating on this level. So let's see one by one. They are usually introverted. So exposing, being vulnerable, usually not a comfort zone for tech people. Risk-averse and conflict-averse. So group thinking, friendliness, they prefer to work on this space. They usually associate mistakes with failure. This is something that you have to work very intentionally on. Until you break this association, they will be afraid of being embarrassed, of saying something that others might be thinking it was wrong. You don't even have to have the embarrassment out loud, because they imagine what other people are thinking. They think obstacles first, which is good in various scenarios, but it creates paralysis. Before you even try something, you're already thinking about all the things that can go wrong. And in the end, they're not people-oriented. When you need innovation, and people were talking here in the panel, they want more reserved space, more lonely, long time, focused time to work. But that's also a comfort zone. And if you want to innovate, you need to create friction, and frictions come to connecting people. So what can you do? How can CTOs and other tech leaders handle this challenge? I'm not going to go over all the emotional and social intelligence model, but that's what's going to get you to the next level. And I'm not saying this just because I'm a psychologist. I'm saying this from research. Research shows that CTOs and other C-level executives, this is the level where you have to have the highest level of emotional and social awareness. And I understand that some of you even have a very good self-awareness, but not very good social awareness. And usually the organizational awareness is the skill gap that I find most common among tech leaders. So let's check just the main ones that are responsible for challenger safety. Oh, by the way, just going back. If you want to learn more, a little bit more about this, I have an online course on the CTO Craft campus called Emotional Intelligence for CTOs. So you can go a little deeper on this. The first thing I would like you to ask yourself, how do you feel about change and innovation? Try to answer that in your heads. And how did you react the last time someone challenged your ideas? One of the panelists was saying that when they interview candidates, they asked about past experiences, how they've done that in the past. That's called competency and skill-based interview. So it's a very good method of interview. It assumes that past behavior will predict future behavior. And that goes for us. When you ask a generic question, like, how do you feel about change and innovation? Usually you respond with a concept. I feel great. I love it. It's something that I encourage everyone doing. But when you ask yourself, when was the last time someone challenged and how do you react to your ideas, and you cannot find that time, maybe you're not that open to be challenged as you thought. The self-management is the part that I love the most, because it has to do with habits. There are some bad habits that I usually see hindering innovation among tech leaders. And there are 20 bad habits on the Marshall Goldsmith book. What got you here won't get you there. I also recommend very strongly you read this book. So starting with no, but, or however. It's like this. Someone brings you an idea. Oh, Carol, I have this great idea for improving your presentations. You should start with data. And I say, sure, but I've tried that in the past, and the audience didn't actually. So you don't even let the person finish their idea, and you're already throwing a cold shower on them and shutting down. And in the end, what are you saying? You're saying that I know better. I know better than you. Don't bring me these silly ideas. And if that happened once, what are the chances that that same person will bring you a new idea again? And the other one is adding too much value. It's the overwhelming and irresistible desire to add 2 cents of your idea. And that's also a culture that also casts a shadow. Going back to the same example, Carol, why don't you start with data? You're speaking with data. And I say, that's good, but if we start with data and storytelling, it's going to be even better. In the end, I'm saying, your idea is not very good. Mine is better than yours. So these are 2 bad habits that you have to contain. And I don't say control, because I don't believe in self-control. It's like willpower. Research shows that it doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't last. It's not sustainable. What we need is actually improve our self-awareness and social awareness to understand how we can replace those bad habits with good habits. And we are going to see that a little further. So how can you express your concerns without blocking others' initiatives? You also should have space to vent your concerns. The last one is social awareness. In my experience, tech leaders have a lot of empathy, but they hardly ever communicate it. They expect people to assume they have this ability, or they understand. But when you don't communicate, people do not assume that. So these are 3 questions I would like you to ask yourselves. What does it cost for your team to challenge you? What happened to the last person that challenged the status quo, that challenged the idea, or challenged you? Is your organization ready to be challenged? And in what way? Not everything has to be challenged. Maybe you work on a very strict compliance, and you have to follow some procedures. That's not to be challenged. So where is the space for challenge? How we will allow that? Who can be allies and who will be against change? So you can create champions of your idea, allies for your ideas, but also understand and empathize with people that could be against and understand what are the points they are concerned or afraid about. So 2 strategies I have to show you here. Remember, I told you it's about structure and about building good habits, about changing your mindset. And the first thing is embracing your leadership role when it comes to innovation. To intentionally stimulate difference, to connect ideas, stimulate dissent. So the leadership role is responding to all suggestions, don't leave any suggestions unanswered. Modeling behavior, and I was just discussing outside this with someone, with Christoph, and he was saying, okay, I've never had this modeling before as well. How can I model something that I didn't have? So that's a huge challenge. You understand how you can build that from scratch. Creating opportunities for dissent, and we are going to see a structure just now. Empowering and rewarding, challenging the status quo, and that's where KPIs go in. The first thing you have to check if your KPIs are hindering or encouraging innovation. People know they're going to be assessed by their KPIs. And you're asking them to put their idea, their energy, their intention in something else that they're not going to be praised for in the end. And assemble diverse teams. If innovation is connecting different ideas, different people, we have more chances of bringing something different to the table and creating that healthy dissent. There are many ways we can do this. One of the ways we can do this is playing devil's advocate. So if you want, then you can reach out to me and I'll send you a script for this type of meeting. But the most important thing is that when you actually adopt this kind of strategy, you are turning risk aversion into a team strength. You are allowing a safe space for people to dissent, so they get the task to dissent. It's important, and they will be praised by the collaboration of disagreeing. So you can rotate the role. You will normalize dissent by creating frequent devil's advocates meeting and create a structure for challenge. So it's not just, okay, Paul has an idea. What can go wrong? It's not like that. There has to be a structure. Remember, cover for candor. What is the kind of protection that you're giving for these people to challenge you or someone in the company or a process of a way of doing things? And that's super important, no additions, just contradictions. Because if you let one person add an idea, the other ones will shut down, and they will feel embarrassed for not giving the idea. You can have then a second meeting, the end meeting, yes-and meeting, that will build on this. But since tech people are very concerned, they are risk-averse, you have to get this out of the way. Until you get the concerns out of the way, that concerns won't leave their mind and won't open space for other possibilities, for other ideas. And the good habits, the part that I love the most. So to foster innovation, you don't have to take all these habits, please. Behavior change happens one habit at a time. So choosing just one is the best strategy to go. So start a leadership journal about this. How have I been fostering challenges safety? Focus just on that. If you think that can boost your company's innovation, your team ability to innovate, then why not ask yourself and improve your self-awareness on this. Be the last to speak at meetings. Thank every idea you get without adding to it. Just say thank you. And okay, work more on that, and we'll see. Work with John, work with Mary, and we'll see how this goes in a week. Always give feedback on ideas. Connect different people to get different results. This could be a habit. Okay, we're stuck in here. Let's move the dynamic of the team around. Let's make some new chemistry. Let's add someone new. And don't be at every meeting. You don't have to be at all the meetings. You have to get them space to dissent from themselves without you casting your shadow there. If you are admired, you will probably be admired. And that will be hard for people to challenge. So in the end, today, David's team, they take the lead. They are running their own devil advocates meeting, and they are already bringing ideas with the obstacles and how they intend to minimize or go around those obstacles, or even eliminate. It depends on the problem. So what I wanted to understand is innovation doesn't live in friendly environments. That's a misconception. It lives in brave ones, where people feel safe to challenge you. So thank you. If there's any questions, I think I got it in 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Well done.
Questions?
We can definitely get one in if we're quick, and no one's voted, so I'll just pick one. How can we encourage and stimulate healthy conflict?
Well, one of the things is using devil advocates meetings. So I think that's one of the things. So if you want to try something, that's what works best at everything that I do. But especially, you have to out loud communicate that you want dissent and you want to reward dissent. You want to reward not just results, but also effort.
Cool. I think that's all we have time for, but thanks again to Carol.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.